Hello, I am Ira Whiteside from Actuality Business Intelligence, and I am joined by Nitin Khanna, also from Actuality Business Intelligence. And we're going to walk you through a brief demo of a product called ABI Data Analyzer, which will basically read files and or tables, perform data profiling and domain profiling, and create, in essence, a metadata mart. Which would allow you to do file analysis or profiling analysis, and more importantly, it will demonstrate the abilities of creating data-driven components in the Microsoft stack for SSIs, now SSDT. So the first thing we'll do is populate our tool. The tool is developed in C#. And again, we'll use the SQL Server System Management object and generate the packages. First thing we'll do, as you can see, is select the source type. In this case, we'll select the flat file. The file we're going to pick, we'll come in and pick it out of our directory, is simply a file called sample. That'll take 1 second to pull that up. Well, then we've got basic transformations. These transformations are going to perform data profiling. So we'll select import to table. So we'll bring that file into a table. And then we'll also say we would like to profile that table, and we would like to do domain analysis against that table. Having selected our transformations, we'll now select our target server and input our credentials. In this case, we're also going to create a database. Commonly, you may not have to do that. We'll create that database. We'll create a table called table. Below that in green, you'll see that there is actually a directory in an SSIS/SSDT package name. And so that's going to be the package stored in our local directory. We'll take a look at that. We have an option here to generate the code or the package, if you will, and execute it. The first thing we'll do is generate it. Relatively verbose, it'll give us information as it's going along, and constructing the package completely independent of human intervention and based solely on the metadata it has read from the file and the options we've selected. You can see the package is saved successfully. At this point, we will go into SQL Server real quick so that we can show you there is no database 781. So if we click refresh, you can see that we've got database 781 and no tables exist at this point. We'll come back and execute our package, and we'll do that from our tool. And first, now what we'll do is we'll go look at final demo 1 package. We'll go take a look at the package first, and then we'll look at SQL Server. So if we come into Visual Studio, and you can see here we have a package. The package that was generated has got, from the top down, we've generated a SQL Server package, again now called SQL Server Data Tools. We have first created a data flow component, which is what you're looking at. If we flip over to the control flow for a minute, if we flip back on the control flow tab, you can see that we've actually got 2 flows. We have up top a execute SQL task, which will actually create our table. The DDL is generated. We can click on that real quick. And if we click on the SQL statement, you'll see, as you can see already by the hover over, that the SQL layer is generated. We'll cancel out of that. And once we cancel out of that, you can see that we'll then double click on our data flow component. And excuse me, as we do that, you can see that again, we'll take it from the top down. We've got a flat file source created. We can open that real quick, and you will see that it is defined as 5-column text file. If we look at the columns, you can see we've got name, age, and a couple of other date fields, salary fields, and retired. We'll cancel out of that. We send that data from that flat file source into a multicast. You can see we've attached 3 components. On the left side, we have an ABI domain stat component. On the middle, we have an ABI profiling component. And on the right, we have a destination. The destination is going to write out the file to a table. And the profile component will double-click on the domain stat component, on the far left. We create basic SSIs components here. And so relying on the advanced editor, the only option in this component is really to select input columns. And as you can see, we've selected them all. In addition, if we cancel out of this, in addition to creating and using our SSIS components, we've created 2 derived columns. If you click on the derived column, you can see we've also brought in some metadata to represent the server name, database name, and table name. And again, this is all generated within the code. One last thing, if you did not want to use the ABI Analyzer, if you were to click on the left on the toolbox, you can see that we have several ABI components. We have ABI domain stat and ABI column stat, which could be used manually, as well as fuzzy matching and several other components which we won't go into in this video. Given that, if we now move from the SSIS package to the SQL Server table itself, we'll take a look at the results and the tables that were generated. So in this case, if we right-click, you can now see that we've got 3 tables: ABI domain, ABI profile, and table. If we take a peek quickly inside of table, you can see that it's a little 5-record table with individual names, ages, join dates, salaries, and whether or not the person is retired. If we also click on the profile table, you can see that we've stored in a table, we've profiled the table itself, and we've created a little table repository that tells us for that table there are the maximum value, the minimum length, the minimum value, minimum length, record count, blank count, null count, basically all of the normal data profiling information you'd expect against a file, and we've now stored this with 1 row for each column. We can also take a look real quick at the table called ABI domain. And we've done some special column profiling here where we've determined for a domain name column, right next to column name there tells us a unique value. A domain pattern tells us the pattern, then the domain counts. You can actually use these in an interesting way. We're going to jump over to Excel and leave the technical walkthrough behind and take a look at the business insight or business value perspective of this type of information. If we take a look at our first set, we've created here a pivot table, and we'll show you in a second how that's done. It's easy to do, but if you take a look on the left, we'll click on age. And what we've tried to do is endeavor to provide you a natural drill down where if you look at a column in a data, a column that was in a data file, you can see that you can see the 2 99s up there, and below that the 25, 42, and 45. What that means is we've got a record count of 3 with values of 99. For a column of age, that would be conformant. However, you can also see that we have a pattern of Z, 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 Z with the word damage. That is a problem. The next thing we could do is take a look at our join date. Then if we click on our join date, we'll see, well, you know what, we've got two patterns here. We've got a standard time date pattern with 3 records, which looks fine. However, we have one pattern that is off. It shows that there is a comma at the end of the last 99 on the date. In addition to detailed domain level or column level information, we can take a look at data profile statistics. So if we click on sheet 2, you can see here that we've also imported our table, which tells us name, for instance, has a record count of 5, a minimum value of John Clark, a minimum length of 9, a maximum value of Sen Sildever, a maximum length of 12, blank counts, domain counts, and several statistics related to that column's content contextually in this file. Lastly, just to show you real quick, if we click on a new tab, and we'll show you how we created these. We simply went to Data and selected the other sources. Out of the other sources, we selected SQL Server, and of course entered our local database name here, credentials, and we went through a little wizard. We've selected our table. We'll get the profile table here. We're going to do a select, finish this out. We will populate it in this worksheet as a table and not a pivot table. And as you can see very quickly, we now have, after we enter our credentials, that is, we now have our, in essence, basic data profiling report, data profiling scorecard, if you will, and some high-level business insight into the context and contextual information in this file. We've got a few other things that we'll be discussing in later videos. This is Ira Whiteside and Nitin Khanna. Thank you very much.